Several African finance ministers from the Commonwealth and the Organization of the Francophone took part in a joint ministerial forum on debt sustainability. The ministers discussed how to deal with the impact of the global economic meltdown and how to prevent their countries from laboring under excessive debt. The Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat, Ransford Smith, explained the meeting's focus.
The Commonwealth, in fact, was at the forefront of advocacy for debt relief many years ago. That has resulted in debt relief for a number of countries, including Commonwealth developing countries. Debt management is one of the important areas of our activities. We provide technical assistance to our countries in doing this. What is different this year, perhaps, is that we have had a joint meeting with the OIF, the Organization of International Francophonie. This meeting was, in fact, called for last year when the Commonwealth Ministerial Debt Sustainability Forum met in St. Lucia. And it was then decided that we should have a joint meeting with the Francophonie low-income countries. Our concerns are similar. Our interests are quite similar in this area.
The finance ministers discussed proposals mooted by the international community to support them tackle the economic crisis. Representing the Minister of Finance from Guyana, Jennifer Webster said it's advantageous for countries to work together and share information on how to deal with issues that confront their individual countries.
There is a need to enhance the capacity of our respective member countries to better manage our debt, to conduct debt sustainability analysis and other technical evaluations.
Samantha Attridge, a senior advisor at the Commonwealth Secretariat, expressed concern that there is a significant decrease in trade and remittances.
It's quite clear over the last decade, certainly, that trade has fueled growth in many countries, low-income countries, and exports comprise of a major part of GDP. So this is of concern. And in fact, the IMF recently did some forecasts dated in March 2009. I have the references at the back of this presentation. And they're forecasting that through this transmission mechanism, it's going to have an adverse effect on the current account deficit by 3% of GDP. So,
with government revenues falling and pressures to increase spending, countries may be under more pressure to borrow to help offset the impact of the crisis and meet reasonable expectations for their people. Zambia's finance minister cautioned member countries to avoid slipping back into the problems of excessive and unmanageable debt.
Most of us are more aware today than in the 70s and 80s about the risks of getting into debt. That time, I think our institutions, our knowledge, we really are not as advanced as they are today. So I think we are much more aware, and this makes a lot of difference. Secondly, I think our technical competence in terms of dealing with the issues of identifying the risk of debt and doing something about them, thanks to the Commonwealth and other initiatives, we are much more on top of things. And thirdly, I also want to say that the way African countries are adjusting today to this shock is much better than the way we adjusted in the 70s and the 80s.
The meeting at the World Bank headquarters was jointly organized by the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Organization of the Francophone. Paul Ndiho reporting for the Commonwealth in Washington, D.C.